Thank you for coming to the CLEAResult webinar around utility marketing, insights, and innovations for a new era. This webinar is featuring ComEd's recent Voice of Customer research and the 2020 marketing campaigns that came out of the research. Before we get started here, I just wanted to do a quick note that you can listen through your computer audio. That is the recommendation. If you can't get that, then you can call in using the number. If you see the little description there, just select phone and it'll pull up the phone number and the code and the PIN to log in. And throughout the presentation, if you have any questions, feel free to just put them into the question panel and we will answer those at the end if we have time, or we'll follow up directly with you after the webinar to get that answered for you. So I'd like to introduce our speakers today. We have Michelle Potasic, Manager, Customer Education and Marketing from ComEd. Michelle joined ComEd in 2010, leading the marketing for the ComEd energy efficiency programs. She brings over 28 years of marketing experience to her current role, managing the ComEd Marketplace online store, residential energy efficiency offerings, and the new email marketing team. Her marketing role also includes the incorporation of propensity modeling, segmentation, and past customer participation to create strategic marketing plans and select the appropriate tactics and messaging. We also have Colleen Hepner, the Customer Insights Manager. Colleen joined ComEd in 2016 with over 20 years of consumer research experience. She currently leads the Customer Insights team from ComEd, which is focused on discovering what ComEd's consumers do, think, and need, and leveraging those insights to drive business initiatives across the organization. We also have Kara Schweiler, Senior Marketing Specialist from ComEd. Kara joined ComEd in 2014 on the implementation side, managing a variety of energy efficiency offerings. She was also part of the founding income eligible team and a program manager on ComEd's residential team. Her current marketing role includes executing tactics to increase participation and meet goals for ComEd's energy efficiency portfolio through a variety of strategic initiatives. And then our CLEAResult team that is joining us is Harish Managala, Director of Marketing Automation. Harish is a demand gen leader with several years of experience in advisory and consultant roles to the marketing organizations, with a specific focus on omni-channel marketing campaign design, execution, and optimization. Harish has been consulting with several utilities marketing organizations over the past few years and helping them with innovative demand gen strategies. Harish's past experiences include several large global organizations like Dell and ADP. Then finally, we have Denny Phillips, our creative director from CLEAResult, the creative spark behind some of the biggest loyalty programs and brands for over 20 years, including Pizza Hut, 7-Eleven, Dell, Coca-Cola, and NRG Reliance. Most recently, Denny has been with CLEAResult since 2017 and partnered with our clients, teams, and leadership to provide creative strategy and vision. All right, I would now like to hand it over to Harish, who will start with a situation analysis of the current environments.
Thank you, Travis. Welcome everyone once again to our webinar today on utility marketing, insights, and innovations for a new era. Utilities are trusted brands for consumers, and it is not surprising that utilities have a very high brand awareness and brand equity. And since the outset of this pandemic, even the customers who generally spend only a few minutes a year thinking about their energy bill are starting to look at their utility more closely during these times. While several utilities have paused promotional campaigns, they are still continuing with their valued communications. And during these times, customers are paying real close attention to what several brands are saying, and even closer attention to what they're actually doing. And customers are spending unprecedented amount of time at home during this time, which is driving up a lot of their energy usage and their habits. They're spending a lot more time on electronic devices, and many of them are doing telework, spending time on DIY. Homeschooling has taken up a lot of time over the past several months. To meet this change in consumer behavior, utility energy efficiency communications have pivoted quickly to focus on no-cost, low-cost solutions, virtual solutions, and DIY-focused communications. During this time, we can empower customers to manage their energy bills better and give them one less thing to worry about. And customers now more than ever need to hear compassion, reassurance, and solutions from a trusted voice. Over the next couple of slides, we look at some of the macro market trends and how over the past several months, the customer behaviors have been shifting and what are some of the key drivers. And it's an unfortunate circumstance that more than 50% of US households over the past few months have reported financial stress. And those numbers are particularly large in low to moderate income households. The GDP has reduced almost 4.8% in the first quarter, and the recovery is anticipated to take anywhere between 3 to 5 years, based on the past financial crisis that we have on record. So the current sentiment, trends, and lessons from the last financial crisis on record are leading us to anticipate 5 specific consumer behaviors to stick around for a long time. And those are increased price sensitivity for the economic reasons, higher digital engagement. People are spending a lot more time at home, and they're spending a lot more time on the digital channels of engagement, whether it's for their entertainment or shopping or social engagement has shifted a lot to digital as well. And there is increased rise in attention to hygiene and wellness, and that's been is coming up on almost all the decisions and day-to-day activities consumers are going through. Then many of them are nesting at home. Now things are opening up largely. Several parts of the country have opened up in different phases. But staying at home and spending a lot more time at home is going to be a common activity that is anticipated to stick around for a fairly long time. And then this situation has given an opportunity for individuals to redefine their purpose. And a couple of other research studies have indicated consumers are more fearful of economic impact than their health. Those numbers have been pretty on par with each other, but consumers are definitely fearing a lot more of economic impact. And then certain spending habits, shopping habits have also changed. Rise in conscious consumption and a lot of growing love for locally sourced, locally sold, and their own communities. And then again, consumers are now reaching out a lot more to their own communities and staying within their communities. And these connections are anticipated to stay a lot longer after the virus is contained and the situation returns to normal. So when we return to normal, it's anticipated to be a new normal with a lot of changes in the way we interact with our consumers. Going to the next slide, at ClearResult, we have been tracking the consumer behavior and media trends and consumption habits in general across the country, globally, as well as within the utility industry, because we at ClearResult, within our utility marketing department, we work with several large utilities across the country, here in the US as well as in Canada. So we have been paying close attention to some of the changes in media consumption behaviors and consumer trends. So the internet usage has been up close to 50 to 70% over the past few months, and that has translated into several digital channels. Social media platforms have seen spike in their overall traffic and usage. However, the brands have seen decreased engagement on their posts, and posting frequency has also reduced from several brands. Obviously, all the marketing plans, all the communication plans they have put in place at the beginning of the year had to be stopped, and they had to change up all the communications so that it is relevant to the current situation. And from a media standpoint, again, digital advertising standpoint, the display ads have seen a spike. YouTube ads have seen a lot of spike, and similarly, voice search was also on the up because people are spending a lot more time within their comfortable spaces where they have access to voice-based devices like Alexa and Google Home. Live TV viewership has gone up, cable news has gone up, the local TV was the biggest winner in this. People have been tracking a lot of news and tracking all their insights through the TV a lot. And then lack of live sports has pushed people towards consuming other content like news or gaming. Gaming has seen unprecedented rise in number of hours people are playing, and similarly, streaming and OTT platforms, they have almost doubled, and people have spent billions of hours already on OTT platforms, which was a significant shift compared to this time last year. In spite of commute times going down, radio has also seen increased consumption, and again, for news and for all other activities, radio consumption has also gone up. Now, a recent Nielsen study, as of last week, they found that the streaming connected TV remains at very high levels compared to pre-COVID, despite lockdowns are being lifted. So that is one trend that is anticipated to stick around for a long time. Now, one thing we have observed at CLEAResult, as we started supporting a lot of our utility customers around crisis communications and customer communications, the email engagement has gone up. In general, utilities enjoy a lot more engagement on their generic emails compared to several other industries. Again, going back to that brand awareness and brand equity aspect. But we have seen a significant rise in email engagement from the outset of this pandemic. And then in the next few points, we look at how marketing departments have adjusted in response to some of these changing circumstances. 70% or more media buyers have already adjusted or paused their planned media. Again, whatever they have planned at the beginning of the year, looking at last year's data and before, and their media mix, everything had to be changed because of how quickly the situations developed. So about 70% of media buyers have adjusted, paused their planned spend, and also ad content and messaging has shifted. We'll look at some of the examples here at the later half of the presentation with some examples of how certain major brands have shifted their ad content to meet the current situation. The significant shifts have been observed around showing empathy, giving comfort, community-minded advertising, and also focusing a lot more on delivering value as opposed to promoting a product. And from a search standpoint, again, within that digital marketing realm, desktop search has seen a reversal and a spike. Over the past few years, the trend was leaning a lot more towards mobile, but since people have been spending a lot more time at home and working from home, desktop search has seen a lot of spike. And then some insights around first half of the year and how some of the marketing investments have gone. TV investment is anticipated to be down about 33% in the first half, print down, out of home, more traditional display ads like billboards, that is down. But the biggest impact from a marketing standpoint was on the live events, down to 56%, and majority of the brands have switched towards digital events and trying to still have certain events to communicate with their customers. Over the next couple of slides, I would like to hand it over to Colleen Hepner from ComEd to go over some of their voice of customer pulse check survey they did during this period, and there are some really exciting insights from there for us to glean. Over to you, Colleen.
Hi, thank you, Harish. I'm happy to share some of what ComEd has learned that has helped inform our messaging and outreach to our customers given the life changes that everyone has experienced. As a background, we've been leveraging many different information sources. The company has been listening even more intently to customer voice needs that we've received from our internal channels, such as our care center, social media, inbound emails, and comments provided in our various continuous tracking surveys that we do. In addition, my team has attended 25 or more very topical industry webinars and roundtable discussions since mid-March, and we share the perspective and insights from those throughout our organization. Plus, we've conducted some research to learn directly from our customers, and I'll share some highlights from 2 studies today. Next slide. By late March, ComEd was just starting to get a sense of the customer mindset mostly through the various internal voice of customer sources that I mentioned a minute ago. So a survey was conducted in early April among nearly 500 residential customers to help quantify the sentiments and preferences related to our organization. Next slide. One of the questions we asked was simply, how are the customers feeling? And probably no surprise, the sentiments that rose to the top were they were feeling uncertain, anxious, frustrated, and isolated. Down towards the bottom, by this stage of the pandemic and the isolation, the quarantine rather, I should say, there was a less feeling of anger or shock, but also people weren't feeling particularly inspired. Probably also no shock to anybody. Two things, though, that stood out that we might be able to help customers with is this feeling of being productive and also with being charitable. So while our communication needed to recognize these fears and uncertainty and anxiety that customers were feeling, we felt that we don't necessarily have to say that. We need to recognize it in our tone so we're not tone deaf to that, but also then reinforce these feelings of productivity and charitability. A couple of demographic highlights are on the right-hand side of the slide, but one thing that I'll point out is the low-income customers. When we compared them to other customers, the only thing that really stood out was this feeling of helplessness. It was markedly higher among the low-income customers. So another thing we needed to be very cognizant of as we move forward with our communications. Next slide. At this stage of the pandemic, ComEd had already suspended disconnects, and we had suspended late payment fees, and we had started getting the word out about that. And so we simply wanted to understand how customers felt about that, if most were either favorable or neutral to it, but we also saw that nearly a third of the customers weren't aware. So we knew going into this, and this confirmed it, that we had some communication challenges to simply get the word out to more customers about what we had available to them at that point. And those communications have since increased, and Michelle will talk about some of those later. Next slide. We asked them what type of messages they would be interested in hearing about from ComEd, because there are a lot of things we could talk to them about, but we probably needed to prioritize. And those things that came up at the top are simply that's kind of the table stakes, what we're doing to keep the lights and electricity flowing, how financial programs, what's available for them in terms of financial assistance programs, and also what ComEd is doing to support the community. That came up a little higher in the ranking than I personally was expecting it to, so that was encouraging. At that point, some of our messaging was already talking about that, so that reinforced the value of that. But then also what else came very close to the top was interest in energy efficiency programs, what we can do to help them lower their bill and save money and save energy. Next slide. We asked a very broad question. What can ComEd do to help them at this time? And there are a lot of, got just as broad a responses back as that question might invite. But many people did zero in on the opportunities to help them save energy, be more efficient, manage their usage and manage their bill. And also people mentioned about payment plans and having ways to help manage their finances in that sense. Next slide. We asked the customers what they had been hearing about, what helpful information they had been receiving and from whom. So the types of helpful information they'd been receiving really varied quite a bit. But when it came to from whom they were receiving that information from, brands and companies had a lot to do with it. Also, among these ComEd customers, it was a ComEd-sponsored survey. So yes, their responses might have been a little bit biased, but ComEd also floated to the top of the companies that were providing helpful information to them. So that was something we wanted to continue to reinforce. Next slide. When we asked customers what they were most grateful for, we tried to position this in a very positive sense. What are you grateful for? What are some of the good things that are going on? And it's really the interpersonal things that were top of mind for most people, family and friends, also their health, unity, the way communities were coming together in that sense. And for some people, yes, it was the power, it's the lights, it's the continuity, it's the dependability of knowing they can do their day-to-day activities, the online education and their work and entertainment by way of the power, keeping the power flowing. Next page. Another study we've leveraged is an ongoing tracker conducted by a company called Maru Matchbox. They are a research company with multiple offices around the world. We worked with the Toronto-based team on this. In late March, Maru began a bi-weekly online survey to understand how consumers in the U.S. are thinking, feeling, and behaving during the COVID-19 pandemic. So this survey obtains a large nationally representative U.S. sample from which ComEd customers could be identified based on zip codes. And the results I'll share on the next couple of slides were collected late May and early June, so are quite recent. Next slide. This is kind of a loaded chart, but what we focus on here are how ComEd customers differed from the national average on some opinions and feelings related to the pandemic. Where ComEd customers really skewed higher than the national average
One moment, everyone. It looks like we're experiencing some audio issues. We'll get Colleen back up here in just a moment.
Hello?
You're back on, Colleen.
Okay, hi, sorry about that. I could tell my phone just dropped the call. Sorry. So you've probably had some time to look at this slide and have already seen that ComEd customers are much higher than the national average to be worried about being able to pay their bills if the situation were to last much longer. They are more likely to worry about their financial ability to handle a second wave of the pandemic. And they feel it's appropriate for companies and the government to track people's movement, okay? But also the last item listed here, they're more likely than the national average to feel stressed or concerned about money and finances. So this kind of goes back to what Harish was talking about earlier too, is that ComEd customers are also feeling the stress about the finances and their ability to pay. Next slide. Related to this, they have a lower threshold than other consumers around the country for an unexpected expense. The national average for the expense that consumers would feel comfortable handling is about $1,000, but for ComEd customers, it's about $500. In fact, if you look at the top row of the chart, 31% of the U.S. felt like they could handle about $0 to $200, but it's 44% for ComEd customers. So 44% of our customers would be in that threshold range. Next slide. However, it doesn't seem like it's necessarily unique to the pandemic. If we ask them if their earnings had been impacted and if they're worried. The larger chart is the ComEd customers, and the smaller chart to the right is the U.S. average. And you can see that those are fairly similar. 24% of the ComEd customers said their earnings had been impacted slightly or significantly, and it's 28% of the national average. So this might suggest, and we haven't explored this much, we might have to explore this more, ComEd customers are less financially situated than the national average. Next slide. Harish mentioned earlier about the expenditures and how people are spending, and this study told us that, no surprise probably to anyone on this call, that one thing that ComEd customers felt they were spending more money on during the pandemic is food. Also home and garden and the DIY things, particularly at the season. But also 28% of them said they were spending more on their utilities. So it's the third ranked item in this list. And so given the tone of financial concern and the fact that customers feel they're spending more, that we need to help manage the outbound communication regarding financial assistance and be prepared to potentially be flexible and increase the ease with which people can access the financial assistance too. And I think, yeah, then I can turn it over to Michelle, who will share ComEd's marketing activity. Thank you.
Michelle, looks like your audio is not coming through.
Okay, is that better?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, I'm going to start over. Thanks so much, Colleen. All of the great learnings that Colleen just shared regarding the voice of the customer research helped us to understand customers' needs during COVID. Using this information, along with the learnings from the other sources mentioned, we developed a marketing and advertising plan to address the changes in our customers' lives. Specifically, we identified 3 key customer needs. 1, offer financial assistance and support. 2, ensure reliable service. And 3, provide ways to save energy and money since customers are spending more time at home and using more energy. ComEd is also taking the opportunity during COVID to educate customers and help them to avoid fraud and scams using various marketing and communication channels. And those include, it's a long list, about 10 things we're doing: radio and digital and print advertising. We have collateral in 7 languages, events and presentations that will now be virtual. We're sharing collateral with community organizations, including the Chicago Public Schools Parent Portal. We have tips to avoid scams on ComEd.com. Collateral is being distributed through food pantries. Earned media, TV and radio interviews, bill inserts and bill envelope messaging. And last, we have some educational video on ComEd.com and YouTube that is being shared with stakeholders and throughout the social media channel. We can go to the next slide, Linda. Thank you. So this is kind of what I just covered. Those are the three categories that Colleen mentioned, and then the 3 things that we're doing to move forward with customer communication. Next, I'm going to cover the elements of our COVID advertising campaign with the following 4 themes: saving energy at home, financial assistance, reliability and support, and last, consumer protection. This slide references our first COVID campaign, which was focused on saving energy at home. The media ran from April 13th through May 31st, and the channels included radio, digital, and social media. We shifted gears from our traditional education and awareness messaging focused on our energy efficiency program offerings to promote a tip-based message with a nod to the fact that our homes have now become the center of our universe. The creative took customers to our ComEd.com home savings page, which showcases the program offerings that are still available for customers during COVID. The page also features a link to our tips page that was developed specifically for the stay-at-home order and includes several work-from-home energy-saving ideas. I do have some early campaign results to share with you today. The campaign generated 19.7 million impressions with 60,000 clicks on the digital banners. For the 4 weeks this campaign was in market, the ComEd.com home savings page had 70,000 page views. Now, this was a little less than what we would expect from a larger, longer campaign, but considering its short duration of only 4 weeks, these metrics are fairly consistent. Next slide, please. Our second COVID campaign focused on financial assistance. Media launched on May 18th, and it runs through June 26th. Channels include radio, digital, and community print publications. And we feature radio and print in both Spanish and Polish, and we also have Chinese language print. The goal of this campaign was to reach out to our most vulnerable population. Our advertising agency used zip code data that showed the areas in our service territory which are most affected by COVID. Based on this information, we hyper-targeted the media plan to these areas. We worked with our multicultural media partners to translate the radio spot into Polish and Spanish, and we also translated the print into Chinese, as I mentioned. The financial assistance campaign is still in market through the end of next week. The impressions for this campaign through June 1st are 4.4 million, with 23,000 clicks to our website. The radio spot includes the ComEd 1-800 number as our call to action. We don't quite have the call center results at this time, but once the campaign is concluded, we'll evaluate them to measure the overall success of the campaign. In addition to the advertising, we have sent 3 COVID-themed emails to our customers that provide the financial assistance option. Next slide, please. Our third COVID campaign focuses on reliability and support. The media launched on May 26th and runs through June 22nd. The channels include TV and digital pre-roll. Campaign is featured in both English and Spanish. This spot was created to assure our customers that we are always working behind the scenes to keep the power on. The best part of this spot was the fact that we were able to thank all of the essential workers who are helping to make sacrifices for us every day. I'd like to show you this TV spot now. So Linda, if you could cue it up.
To the heroes among us, thank you for your tireless efforts. ComEd is working hard to keep the lights on and provide assistance to those facing financial hardship. Now, more than ever, we're here to help power everything we need to get through this together. To learn more about customer assistance options, visit ComEd.com/support.
I'm not sure we were able to hear the audio. We can move on to the next slide. The last campaign that we'll highlight today is the Consumer Protection Campaign. Media for the first phase of this campaign ran from March 30th through May 26th, and the second phase of the plan will run from September 28th through November 23rd. Channels include radio, digital, and community print publications, and we feature the campaign in both English and Spanish. This campaign runs during typical high customer scam periods in order to educate customers on how to recognize and avoid scams. Here, we are reminding customers that ComEd will never call them to ask for immediate payment or for their personal information. As of last week, for the first phase of this campaign, we achieved over 4.9 million impressions and 73,000 clicks to ComEd.com/scam-alert. In addition, as a result of this campaign, we have gotten quite a few calls to our call center with customers thanking us for informing them and actually reporting near misses where a customer would have given away their information had it not been for them seeing our scam advertising. Next slide, please. Now I'd like to transition to Kara Schwer from ComEd, who will cover some specific examples of energy efficiency marketing program adaptations that we made during COVID. Kara?
Thanks, Michelle. So today I'm going to share a couple of examples of how we've adapted and worked to overcome the challenges we're facing during the current pandemic. The first example on the slide here is one that I'm really excited about, and I'm just really proud of how we worked with CLEAResult on transforming the entire offering. So the food bank offering traditionally is basically the setup is everything was managed through food banks. So the EE products that we distributed via the food banks, the marketing is through the food banks, and the relationship isn't with the food pantries at all. So one of the large food banks in our program had to suspend its participation as their main focus now is distributing food to their growing customer base. So what we had to do is within a matter of weeks, we worked with CLEAResult to completely transform the program to enable us to work directly with the food pantries in order to keep the offering running. Now, with email marketing, direct outreach, and integrating direct shipments of products to the pantries, we were able to keep distributing LEDs to the food pantries. And direct outreach was coordinated with the email marketing to create a seamless experience for the food pantries, and it also allowed them to take advantage of the free LED light bulbs that we offer. So most importantly here, our income eligible customers were able to receive free LEDs, and then from a program standpoint, this new marketing and outreach strategy allowed us to continue to meet our forecasted savings goals, which was huge for us. Moving on to the next item I have on here is the rebate submissions deadline. So for our appliance rebates, we recognize that times are really hard for customers right now, and applying for a rebate is just not the top priority for them. So seeing this, we determined to extend the rebate submission timeline beyond the standard 60 days. And in order to share this information, we're promoting it to customers on our website, on our rebate portal, and then in bill communications, as you can see on this slide. Finally, I have on here our heating and cooling video. So kind of background information, videos are a really important education tool for our offerings, and we had planned several video shoots this year to educate customers on our heating and cooling rebates. Well, with the current social distancing guidelines, shooting a traditional video with a video team, sound team, and partners in the field was not going to be feasible for us or safe. And at ComEd, safety is our top priority. So with that being said, there's still a need to continue with our original customer education plan, and we had to come up with a solution. As an alternative to a traditional video, we are exploring video options that would not require large video production teams or field visits, but instead, we're investigating using 3D motion graphics and voiceover, as well as other technologies to produce videos. Denny Phillips will share more information about this plan later in the presentation, so I don't want to take up his thunder here. With that being said, I'll turn it over to Denny to share examples of how utilities can adapt programs and marketing, both commercial and residential, around COVID-19 challenges.
Thanks, Kara. And I want to take everybody through the back half of this deck where we talk about what reentry looks like and what's going across all advertising and all categories, not just utility, and then what we can do specifically. But I did want to take a second to just mention the work that Michelle and Kara and Colleen have done is exceptional. And when you look at how challenging that can be from a corporate comm standpoint and an in-market program standpoint, they do a really great job of that on the homepage, driving different types of content there that we've all seen that the data proves that people want. And so if you have time after this, I would absolutely take a look at that. Looking at the reentry communications, I'm going to rotate from the top left all the way around clockwise. And what we have here is an XY graph. This is a standard type of graph that shows the contrast between different plottable points. The left side on the x-axis, we have pragmatic, and on the right side, we have emotional. And then the y-axis in the middle, from the bottom, we have transactional, and the top, we have personal. And so what we look at in outside of the utility field is, what are people doing right now? And we look at Mint Before You Mask, hashtag Mint Before You Mask. It's a very interesting campaign in market right now with a very pragmatic and personal look at this. It actually doesn't have a transactional component to it. It's just reminding people to do something that they haven't been doing recently. And the background here is that Hershey's lost over 50% of their sales in icebreakers alone because people aren't having that social contact anymore. And the social media manager for Hershey's, his wife is a nurse, and she came back home and said, you know, I really need my mint for my own breath. And that's where it came up with Mint Before You Mask. And they came to market in less than a month with this, and they've had nothing but positive results. When we send this deck out, you can actually click on each of these and drive to the Ad Week articles and editorials about this. So up there in the personal and pragmatic quadrant, we have Mint Before You Mask. To the right of that, I'm sure all of you have seen this. I bet this thing is going to win every Cannes Lion Award out there and every bit of recognition it deserves. Is the Zillow ad that really talks about that it's times like these that we understand the true value of home. And it doesn't say of the home, of your home. They just say of home. And I love that nuance as a marketer. And the other thing that's powerful here, there is no real transaction here. It's just personal and emotional. There's no dialogue. The only thing that happens is that they're playing Bob Dylan's Shelter from the Storm, and they don't even start at the beginning. They start in the middle when they talk about walls between us and how we get over that as a culture. And so right there, they're doing some really interesting branding stuff, and that does lead me to the point that we understand that there are challenges in organizations between corporate communications and brand communications and program communications. And so some of these brands are pulling those levers and deciding which ones need to have more effort put towards them. And we know that you struggle with that as well. So we absolutely look for questions there and suggestions moving forward. On the bottom right is CarMax. CarMax has a very interesting take on transactional and emotional. Their spot here that I'm sure people have seen as well is called Curbs Are Having a Moment. And it's very, very nuanced in the fact that we've taken curbs for granted lately. We didn't really think about them, but now all of a sudden we look down and we see what's there, and that it can be curbside for contactless pickup of groceries, of other goods and services. And so to compete against Carvana in market, whose big push was curbside delivery before this happened, CarMax is now offering the same thing. And so this is how they rolled it out in an emotional and transactional way. And then the final bottom left corner, we have Chevy, and Chevy is taking this attitude more of we know that there are uncertain and challenging times, and your vehicle should be the least of your worries. With a little extra help, Chevy is offering 0% APR and deferred payment for 120 days. So very much pragmatic and transactional in this space. Now, on the next slide, as we go through this, what we did was we took a look at some of that and we adjusted things that we had as initiations and available opportunities in market, and shifted those based on some of the things that are out there that can be a little bit more impactful for us. So on this page, we have low cost and no cost energy saving tips. This is exactly what the team was mentioning earlier that they saw in the surveys that came back for ComEd, that as people begin to work from home and homeschooling is a thing and video game usage is up, that describes my entire house right there. We looked at our energy usage, and here in Texas, we are up 27% from where we were last year, and it hasn't even had the same number of 100-degree days. So we are actively looking to make sure that there are ways to do that, and we're helpful every time that we see any sort of communication from utilities out there helping others to take advantage of the offerings and the little steps that they can do to bring that back together. So because it is about people being at home and more likely to use more energy, and then really extend those cost tips out that they should consider. We always want to be looking at repurposing existing content. As mentioned earlier, it is very challenging to get out and shoot new stuff, but we can absolutely repurpose that. And we have done some of those things with Energy Trust Oregon in the top left, sending things out to get the word out. In the top right, we have some mass save content that was developed that is educational content. In the bottom right is a project around hidden incentives and things that you can do in your house that are available from the utility that could help you save money. And then we also offer the ability to stream and look at videos that do create those energy saving moments and repurpose them for social and other channels. On the next slide, when we take a look at LMI customers, we know that in particular, this is very relevant when it comes to energy usage and the help that is going to be needed, especially when we see that data coming back, as mentioned earlier, from Colleen. So we want to be out there promoting energy savings kits, maybe LED distributions. We know that food banks still have quarantine practices in place, and these are places, as you see in the bottom right, where we could have stuck up some additional LED and energy saving kits at those places, so we don't ask people to go to new places that they aren't going to. So we're looking for a lot of community impact there and ways to connect. And obviously the best way to handle this is either with SMS messaging, targeted email, direct mail, community outreach, and social is going to be workable for all of these solutions as we move forward. On the next slide, taking a look at C&I campaigns, this is an interesting time. Some of the businesses are open and others are not, and we can help those businesses, the ones that are open, like grocery stores, bodegas. Those are the places that are getting slammed, that are running 24-hour clocks with more people in and out than ever before, and they're using more energy than they ever have. So we need to help them, and we also need to help the folks that are shut down and have more capacity than ever, so our people can go in and help take a look at energy efficiency tips that are there. And so while it is painful, there are moments for us to be able to support them as they need more support and more financial support as we go through this pandemic and use more energy than we have before. So these small investments in weatherization, smart thermostats, they are significant cost savings for C&I, just as they are for residential as well. And we can absolutely leverage what we're doing here, webinars. We can absolutely do videos, one-to-one calls. We can create trade ally portals that use existing educational content. We can target them with emails. Those types of things make sure that we are always keeping everyone collected together and moving forward, and reminding them that we're here to help them. That is the most important thing that we can do, is remind everyone that we are out there helping everyone change the way that they use energy. On the next slide, a really great example of that we believe was mentioned earlier from Kara and team, that 3D is an example of how we could possibly use this. We say 3D in the way that this is actually a model of a Samsung mini split, and we can provide content still to this day without going into the field. We can zoom into separate areas when we want to call out certain things for specific programs. We can then use voiceover. We don't have to just do it once and then reshoot and reset the set. We don't have to do that. We can actually just use the same footage over again and do voiceover in either Spanish or English or whatever language that you would like to place this in, so that we can help your target market have a more energy efficient lifestyle. The other thing that's really great about this is that we are content creators at the end of the day. And so as we create this content, we help that dollar stretch further. We can use these as pre-roll ads. We can use these on YouTube. We know that there's a lift in there, as Harish also mentioned. We can put this on social channels. Video outperforms static posts 7 to 1. So you have this content that can be created as a cinematograph. And it also can absolutely be used as playlists and put onto YouTube streams, and then allow you to just send out a link and say, hey, we don't know if you know this, but we've got these 7 tips that you can sit and watch and share with your family or share with trade allies. These can also be purposeful either in C&I, trade allies, or residential. So lots of legs for that. And then kind of leading into the next slide on DIY campaigns, as mentioned at the top, that the second highest thing that the ComEd heard back was the DIY was ranked very, very high. I myself, this Father's Day weekend, was going to be doing a number of DIY projects. And so we are out there always in market trying to help people understand what rebates are available out there, what which offerings we have, what help we have, what education we have, and know that those things like thermostats and LEDs can provide a significant help at a time when they need it the most. So making sure that people are assessing their homes. We have virtual assessments available in market where you can come in and have an expert come and call you, and you can use your phone without an app that allows you to take a look at your environment. They can add laser pointers, they can add OCR, so they can actually see the model number on the machine, and they can record that and come back to you and say, these are the most likely things that we can customize for you to help you immediately and help your energy usage. And so as we look at all of those areas, we absolutely can use the same channels that we've mentioned before and help support those DIY campaigns. On the next slide, on 34, just very quickly, I mentioned earlier that community is critical for us, community outreach, also summer fun. As a parent, I can absolutely tell you that homeschooling was a challenge for my 9-year-old in 3rd grade. And now that summer camps are still closed and there is nothing else for him to keep him occupied, that really it's Fortnite these days. And so I myself as a parent am also looking for those educational moments and those community things that we can do as family and as a community. And that isn't just the tips. It is more like something that we've done in the past for HECO, where we're planting trees that in the name of Project Footprint, where you can go online and see where these trees are from a GPS coordinate standpoint, so you can always know and see how things are going. You can make sure that there are summer activities that require no energy. Going out and making s'mores over a fire after you cook hot dogs versus heating up the oven is definitely a way that you can come together as a family. And there are also other apps out there, things that you can actually leverage that are already in market. So like a virtual walk or a 5K, an independent meetup, people signing together, those things are available in apps like Strava, where anyone can actually log in and start that up, and then you can create that as a community moment for you and your customers, and know that it comes in good faith and good intent on behalf of your brand. And then on the next slide, on 35, after we've looked at all of that, I just wanted to kind of bring it back together, because while I know that a Bob Dylan song is absolutely going to have people take the attention of it, it probably cost them millions of dollars just for that track. And we have to be very pragmatic in what we have. And so what I wanted to do is kind of look at the messaging that we have in market and apply that to a $50 savings offer. And so you absolutely can take a look at this when we send the deck out after this. But I wanted to note that we are seeing huge lifts here. Ameren, Illinois in particular was one of the folks that really took a look at where they should be in different quadrants. And I'm sure that all of you need to be in different quadrants in different areas when you have different intents that you want to have happen. And none of these are incorrect for being in a quadrant. For your own brand, there is absolutely a place for you here. And when they did was, it was very much in the emotional and transactional area. And we have found a lot of success in that, so that you're recognizing that this is a different time, but that it is coming from an emotional space. And so when we do say things like, we're all facing unexpected challenges balancing our lives this summer, let us take one thing off of your plate with a $50 instant rebate on smart thermostats that will keep your home comfortable and save you money. And so as I close on the next slide, I just want to take a second and talk about the fact that that this is a community moment. Everyone should be embracing their brands. They need to be tone appropriate and re-engage with those markets. That's the expectation that the customer has of us. They want to hear from you. But we do provide them valued solutions. And so as we look at this, that really there is no task that is too big when done together by all. And so as we have this unprecedented time, we want to help those utilities leverage their trusted brands, provide a reassurance, advice, and assistance to their customers. And Travis, I'd love to turn it back over to you.
This meeting, her webinar was recorded, and we will be sending it out. So if there's any parts that you missed or that you want to read or listen to again, you will have this. We will also be sharing out the PowerPoint deck along with that, so that way you have access to the slides to follow along. So thank you, everyone, and we will see you next time.